Welcome to the Shutdown Stories, episode 11. I have former Arizona Cardinals defensive back and former Toronto Argonauts defensive back Tyler Sigler with me. Tyler, you just announced on Instagram yesterday that you are going to be retiring,
hmm
part due to the shutdown and just everything that's come with it. What went into that decision?
I mean, my wife and I talked a lot about just. I mean, this whole situation was just so unprecedented. There's nothing to compare it to. There's nothing to kind of have a source of reference of how you want to move forward. So, um, originally, when I signed with Toronto, I had been working an internship just to kind of make me ends meet in between playing for Arizona and then going up to Toronto. And a lot of people see the Instagram, the Twitter, the social media pieces of professional athletics, but there's some um, tougher and harder pieces. A lot of people think that you the instant you become a professional athlete that you get paid a bunch of money and you're kind of set for life. And my wife and I kind of uh, risked everything to give this a go. It's something that we don't regret doing at all. But a piece of that is that for me being in Arizona, I was there for training camp and was released in the final cut, and we didn't make a ton of money in the time being. You make a couple $100 a week, enough to stay afloat, but not by no means enough to continually make ends meet for a long period of time. So a big piece of it was just the financial stress that was put on us
Mm-hmm.
by the shutdown. We were planning on going up to Toronto in May and kind of beginning our life up there. And when the CFL suspended pay and the season indefinitely. Um, and then, around the same time, my internship abruptly ended because of the outbreak. Um, it made us kind of reconsider and just think about what was our priority and what was the most important thing to us. While being a professional athlete was something that we loved and was a really cool experience, and playing football was awesome. It wasn't, at the end of the day, like we decided that it was more important to us that we build a basis for our family and um, that we kind of get ready to start our life. I mean, we've been living with another family for 7-ish months out of our first year of marriage, just to make ends meet and kind of seek this dream. So um, this outbreak has been hard on a lot of people, but it's kind of been the cherry on top, or sort of the end of the road for us, just because it put us in a situation where we viewed it as God kind of moving us towards our time being done pursuing it. So
Yeah, and
it
you
went
had
very
kind
well.
of a different road than most professional athletes, anyways, just from the fact that
hmm
you were a Division III football player. That's
hmm
how we got to know each other. I did some work for the broadcast of the Wheaton football games. That's where you got your start. Let's go
hmm
back to that point. What was the whole process like being a kid from a D3 school and
hmm
showing up to camp in Arizona on day one?
Yeah, so I had an interesting experience because I think a lot of people also think that you get every guy gets drafted, every guy gets a big fat signing bonus and is kind of on his way and a bunch of endorsements. And um, that was an interesting time. So I was unsure if I was going to pursue it. I had some interest from some NFL teams and just didn't really know what it would look like. But after a lot of conversation, a lot of thought and prayer, we decided, like, why not? Let's pursue this thing. And was fortunate enough to have two tryout opportunities. I was invited to the New York Giants minicamp, and then I was invited to the Arizona Cardinals, and they were 2 weeks apart. And it's like a 3 or 4 day. Well, it's actually a week apart. It was 3 or 4 days of practice, and then they kind of keep. They bring in about 60 to 80 guys, and then they sign from that only 2 maybe, because they already have their undrafted free agents and draftees signed. So usually they end up having to cut someone to make space. And going to the New York camp, it was not easy. I mean, it was a completely different level of competition. I think mentally I was a step behind. I was nervous and um, very comparative of what other guys were doing and how athletic other guys were and how this guy moved or that guy moved. But kind of was overcome by all the other um, everything in my surroundings and not uh, focused on the task at hand. And so actually, you know, it's hard, but it was very beneficial for me to go experience that before going to Arizona. I didn't play my best and just didn't feel great about it. New York was awesome and gave me a great opportunity. I just didn't make the most of it. So the transition to Arizona was a little bit easier because I had kind of that prep course in New York,
Mm.
you know, trial by fire, of kind of falling flat in my face and being like, all right, that didn't work, that didn't work, and that didn't work. But then after being in Arizona for only a couple days, I kind of took a step back and realized that they're just normal people. They're normal guys. They're good football players, but I am too. And that was really a turning point, being there. You know, it's kind of funny talking about my college experience and, you know, how we traveled to games and what meals we ate and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not being a scholarship athlete and having student debt and having these guys who, you know, my roommate went to Alabama, and, you know, our college experiences and, um, especially with athletics, could not have been more different. I mean, could not have
Yeah.
been more opposite ends of the spectrum. But it was really cool to have great conversations with those guys and really realize that aside from what a lot of people from the outside would see as differences, you become pretty close. And once you become close, you kind of realize that all these guys are just people. They're normal players, they're normal athletes, and it kind of levels the playing field. So that was a big thing for me. It was just, I read a really great book, called Master Your Mindset. It really helped me, um, take steps forward and just learn how to control my self talk and prepare my mind mentally to, prepare myself mentally to go out and compete. And it didn't really matter. I couldn't control how good other players were. I could only control myself. So it was good.
Yeah, you mentioned that when you showed up to the Giants mini camp, you were kind of in your own head about just the level of competition.
Mm,
What really is the difference between, I mean, not even Division III, but high level Division III, bordering on Division II? Obviously, those Wheaton teams that you were on were good, made runs through the
mm,
playoffs, made it to the quarterfinals one of the years. But what's the biggest thing that you noticed kind of making one of the biggest jumps that you can from college to
mm.
the pros?
I mean, originally it was the size and the speed, but as I kind of got further into it, the level of preparation and just what those guys go through week to week, at some of the bigger schools, they just have access to a different level of resources. And, you know, I love Wheaton College. I don't have any regrets about my experience there, but, you know, at a school like Alabama or, you know, Michigan State or one of these big, you know, these huge schools that have unlimited resources for athletics, they're putting that money to work for athletics. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, does it help you as a professional football player? Yeah, you know, it does help those guys when that's a big focus for them. You know, I love Wheaton. I don't think Wheaton allocates nearly the same percentage of resources to athletics as a bigger school, but I also think that's part of why I liked Wheaton and why I liked going there. Is I was going there for my education. I was going there for the fellowship and the relationships that I made. But I do think there's a huge difference in just how seriously those guys took football. From, you know, when I originally went to college, I loved football, but it wasn't the center point of my life. Um, but, you know, at these large institutions where guys are, you know, asked to be a big revenue source for the school, they're gonna back these guys with every resource possible. And so that was the biggest difference I realized, was that these guys had, you know, every meal was planned out. They had, access to trainers, massage therapists, you know, and to me that was all new coming into Arizona. But to these guys, it was just, you know, a normality. It was just what they were used to. And so, um, that took an adjusting period for me, of just being able to best use my resources and understand what it looked like to prepare at the highest level and to, you know, live, eat, sleep, and breathe football. And, you know, that was a huge difference. Obviously there was other differences in the size of players and the speed of players, but at the end of the day, it's the same game. They're the same. The schematics are the same. It's really the preparation, the mental capacity, and then, you know, obviously you have to be able to run fast and then be physical. But I think the biggest difference was these guys were bred to play football. Like, they were, I mean, their mental capacity and their focus and drive was something that I had to learn from, because I didn't have it at first.
Hmm. So fast forward to now, just a month and a half, 2 months ago, you had your stint with the Cardinals. You were signed by the Argonauts. And then news comes down that the CFL is suspending the season for the foreseeable future. What was the first thing that went through your mind when you heard that?
I mean, I was pretty crushed. I knew the implications of that. I mean, so I'll back up because it's an interesting story. But my wife and I decided when I was cut by Arizona that we would give it through the end of the year. So we said, December 31st, if we don't hear something, we're moving on from football. That was just what we had prayed about and felt really comfortable with, and felt like God leading us down this path. And it's amazing when you pray for something and you don't ever really expect your prayer to be answered, in a certain way. But on December 27th, we did not hear a word from, early September until December 27th. I got a random phone call from the Argonauts saying that it wasn't like, hey, we want to try you out or work you out. It was like, hey, we're signing you. And so my wife and I took that as, some pretty strong direction. And so I continued my internship, and the goal was to be done with my internship in March or April, and then move up to Toronto in May. And I had been training at night the whole time to get ready for this. And so we were ecstatic. I mean, it took some time for us to decide what exactly we wanted to do, but and how we could make that work. But we've sacrificed a lot to pursue that dream. And at that point, we were kind of at the end of our wits, but we were like, all right, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. This is what we're gonna do. And then when the news came down that the season was suspended, at first it was like it may be suspended for a month, but could be longer. And we're like, okay, that was the first kind of outbreak, first news of the outbreak, and kind of people were feeling out what it was going to look like. And then, the following week I got sent home from my internship, and a few weeks later the internship was done. I mean, they were like, we're done with we're cutting the program. And so we had no source of income. And so around the same time, the CFL came out and said that the season has been suspended indefinitely. And at that point we were like, okay, what are we going to do here? Like, our hands are kind of tied. We don't really have, too many options. And so we've been weighing it, and started interviewing with jobs and just trying to figure out what this whole thing is going to look like. But eventually we decided that, I think any day of the week, my wife and I would sacrifice anything to keep playing this game and to keep pursuing this dream. But it got to a point for me where I realized that I was losing my love for the game and losing my passion to keep doing it, because of the burdens that were coming with it. And to me, at the end of the day, like I don't, as much as I love the game and would love to play football for as long as I can, when I think about my life and my career and, being a dad and those things, those are so much more important to me than just playing football for an extra 2 years, and realizing that sort of these burdens and these stressors were outweighing that and causing a negative effect on both me and my wife. And just the amount of stress it was causing just to pursue something that, I really was starting to lose a lot of passion for, was ultimately the reason that you take away income. Every person needs to make money. Every person needs to survive. And when that came down that they're not going to pay players until the season starts, and the season may not happen this year, that was pretty strong direction from our point of view, that we needed to start pursuing other things. And so, you hate to say that, like, this whole coronavirus and COVID ended for me, like, pursuing that dream, and I ended up retiring because of it, and realizing I don't want to keep playing. Even, it's hard to say that, like, that's what caused it, but at the same time, it helped me work through some of those feelings of, like, I don't feel passionate enough about this to risk everything for it anymore.
So that brings us to your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for you? What does retirement look like? Obviously, you're going to go out and get another job, or you're still young.
Yeah.
You're in your 20s. It's not like you're a 40-year-old Tom Brady retiring or anything like that. But what's next?
Yeah, I think the word gets thrown around. I mean, for us, it wasn't like technically or feeling like we were retiring, but that's just the word that, I'm done playing football. And so that's the word that you use to say that you're moving on from that career. But I accepted a job at a financial institution in Austin, Texas. So my wife and I will be moving there in the next 3-4 weeks. So by June 1st, I'll have my, June 1st is my start day there. So I felt like that was a part of it too, was we had a really great opportunity come up. And it was a job that I had kind of circled before. And so we're really excited about this next phase of life. I mean, it's crazy enough to say that we're just excited to be in our own apartment and, live a normal day-to-day life, which, might be the boring normal to a lot of people, but we're really excited about it. We haven't even got to do it since we got married in last May. So, our anniversary gift, so far we'll be moving into our own apartment and, moving across the country for the second time this year. So we're really excited, but that's the next steps for me, and I'm really excited to pursue a career in financial services, something that I always saw myself doing, and even sometimes more so than playing football. We're really, really looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome, Tyler. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show with me. And I really appreciate hearing your story. I'm sure plenty of people out there will too.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for talking.
Take care.
All right, see you, man.